Welcome to part one of this five-part presentation on consultant learning, a framework for empowering students to excel and a framework for transforming your teaching experience. I'm Scott Kunkel, professor at the University of San Diego and the creator of consultant learning. I'm going to start with some questions, and if you've ever asked yourself these questions, stay with me.
Are you totally satisfied with your current teaching experience? Do you ever think there must be a better way to teach? Do you ever wish that you could lead your students instead of having to push them? Would you like to feel that you're getting their very best work instead of settling for mediocre or just-get-by work? Are you concerned about the dropout rate? Do you ever think that we're using a 20th century education system designed for a farm and factory society and then sending our students out into a 21st century information economy? Do you sometimes feel that to your students you're the enemy, the cop, the grader? Would you rather be the coach and mentor? Is grading the worst part of the job for you? Would you like to never again have to decide if a paper gets a B- or a C+? Well, let me introduce you to consultant learning. Consultant learning is a framework for empowering students to excel, but it's also a framework for changing your teaching experience for the better. Consultant learning is a multiple award-winning methodology. It uses Americans' love of a game to motivate students, and it turns the classroom into a role-play game where students simulate being consultants on projects for a client, and the client is the teacher. Before we talk about making learning into a game, though, it's important that we discuss what it is that makes a game fun. What does a game have to make it fun to watch and to play? A game must have three things for it to be fun. First, the fans and the players must know the rules of the game. It isn't any fun to watch a game if you don't know what the rules are and don't understand what's going on. Second, you must get enough feedback to follow the action. Just getting the box scores at the end of each inning of a baseball game wouldn't be much fun. You need to get enough feedback so that you can follow the game, and if you're playing, you need to get enough feedback so that you can modify your play as the game progresses. And third, a game is most fun when you have a stake in the game, when you care about how your team is playing.
Well, let's look at the traditional classroom and see how it stacks up against the rules for a fun game. First, students don't know the rules in the traditional classroom. They have to learn them as the course progresses. Students are constantly asking questions like, will this be on the test? What does this count? Do I need to do this assignment? The teacher spends most of their time managing the class. It's kind of like a baseball game where the umpire not only has to call the balls and strikes and safer out, but also has to tell each batter which base to run to and each fielder where to throw the ball. The teacher in the traditional classroom is so busy managing the class that they have very little time to coach and mentor students. Second, students don't get feedback until it's too late to affect the grade on that project, assignment, or exercise. Students aren't coached on how they could have done this project or assignment with quality. Instead, they're downgraded or punished for not having done it right the first time. Third, students do have a stake in the game. They know that grades are important, but that knowledge is not very motivating when they get feedback too late to fix it and make their work better. So how is it different in a consultant learning classroom? In the consultant learning classroom, the system manages the students, and the teacher manages the system. The system frees the teacher to teach and coach. This system of fees that students can earn, that's laid out in the course materials, helps students become self-managing. You will never again have to decide whether to give a particular paper or project a B or a C. Instead, you coach and mentor them to do excellent quality work. Some teachers worry that re-evaluating student projects several times will take too much time. I can show you a shortcut way to do this in minutes per project, not much more time grading than you currently are spending if you use any kind of essay exam, short answer exams, or written assignments in your class.
Like the game of Monopoly, consultant learning uses money to measure success. We keep track of student progress in dollars, not points. Now, we don't use little paper bills like Monopoly, but instead the students keep a simulated checking account to record their earnings, and the students are paid for what they do, and how much the student earns determines their grade for the course. I'm going to deviate here for a minute to talk about an important concept called meaningful work. Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers looked at highly successful people and groups. He tried to identify what made certain individuals and groups more successful than their peers. Gladwell found that more successful people were prepared for success by developing skills through what he called meaningful work. Meaningful work is work that includes three things: autonomy, complexity, and a direct tie between effort and reward. So how well are our schools preparing students to enter our open market economy? Traditional schoolwork is not meaningful work. Students do exactly what they're told, when they're told to do it, and how they're told to do it. Memorizing is not complex or fulfilling, and there's very little tie between effort and reward. A student can spend hours studying for an exam and still do poorly on the exam. Consultant learning turns schoolwork into meaningful work. In Part 1, we learned that consultant learning turns the classroom into a role-play game that's fun because the students know the rules, students get timely feedback, and students have a stake in the game. And we learned that the rules of the game manage the classroom, freeing the teacher to coach and to mentor. We learned that consultant learning turns the classroom into meaningful work. In Part 2, we'll learn about project-based learning and see that consultant learning is a variant of student-centered project-based learning. So click Part 2 to learn about consultant learning's relationship to PBL.